When you're looking for your first studio, it's one hell of a fun time. It's the beginning of new life for your brand and for you. I mean, if you're like me, it's almost like planning a big exotic trip. I mean, this will be your second home and one you're likely to spend most of your time awake in. So it's got to be as close to perfect as you can afford. What are the things that you need to consider for your studio? Space. That's probably the first thing you need to consider, and what you're going to use as your primary search criteria when going through all the possible rental locations. So based on your current photography needs, what's the minimum space you need to use to accomplish your work? I'm talking about the actual photography area. Add a few feet or meters and find the square footage. Draw it out on paper. Don't forget to include, a computer with a desk. Most of us work tethered, right? So don't forget ceiling height. I'm sure some of you do fashion or portrait photography, so you need to, again, like I said earlier, space for the lights to go up there to hang above the subject. So a minimum of around 9 feet or so would be already good. My previous studio actually had 13-foot ceilings, if I recall, yeah. And my current one has actually 17. Overkill for lighting. But the height was for another reason. So, I actually built a mezzanine. And if you actually see the setup I have while I'm recording this video right now for you, is with 17-foot ceilings, you have a lot of echo. So if you ever plan to do video, you're gonna have to do a lot of sound dampening, and I have actually covers all around me. There's trying to absorb some of the sound. Anyways, coming back to the actual section. Now, next up, but it's still related to space, is that you need an area to store things like your equipment, your props, cleaning stuff. If you're a commercial photographer, you'll definitely need to collect and store props such as branches, textured backgrounds, woods, various planks, rocks, aquariums, whatever. You need all that stuff for your shoots. I'd even recommend that you'd be able to put all this stuff under a lock and key in an actual room. And if you're a food photographer, you'll probably need even more space than the average photographer since, you'll have to store plenty of plates, boards, cutlery, dishes, towels, and props. You'll maybe even need multiples of each to create your scene. In the same building as me, actually, just downstairs, on 2 floors down, there's a food photography studio. It's actually really large. And just to say, their storage room alone is as big as my entire studio. But hey, I think they've got like 2 or 3 full kitchens and 4 photographers working there full time. So obviously, that's for them. Another factor affecting space is whether or not you'll be sharing your space with a retoucher or assistant or whoever else on your team. Then they'll need some space too in order to work. Lastly, I'd recommend that you have space you and others can perhaps lunch at, sit, take a break, whatever. Eating at your shooting station or at your retouching table, dropping some juice or coffee on your gear really just isn't cool. What if a client even knocked over their coffee on your new computer or on a lens? That's going to really suck. If you'll be working with a team, it's nice to just be able to detach from the actual work area and just take a break, have a couch. We have 2 couches in the studio, and sometimes we need to take a power nap. We take a power nap. I won't be lying about that. Try to guess what space, all the above points add up to, and it's a guess. It's not easy. Your perfect studio, especially if it's your first studio, it won't be exactly right. But trust me, my first one didn't have that relaxing area, that little R&R zone, but you'll want to be as close to perfect as you can get it. So besides space, what are other things to consider? Well, a full kitchen or a kitchenette. In my first studio, I didn't consider it important to have running water. Well, what a big mistake. If you want to have clean dishes or clean your coffee mug, or even had a lunch, you have to go ahead and go to a public washroom or toilet and do it there. If you want anything that needs water, like a shoot that involves water, splashes and stuff, and you don't have easy access to it, you're again going to have to go get buckets of water somewhere else. So at a minimum, just get at least a studio with a form of running water. If you're a food photographer, then obviously, yes, a full kitchen is high on your list, but do expect your costs to be a heck of a lot more since your spot's gonna have to be a lot larger and you're likely to have a higher electrical bill or a gas bill. The third thing to consider is the way the space is actually arranged. You might need a certain square footage that's free of support beams or odd walls. The space can't be, say, 1,000 square feet, but only 10 feet at its widest. It's gonna be too narrow. You gotta make sure that the dimensions work with what you need. The fourth item to note is windows. Or even the floors. If you have a place that's window free or very dark, it's great for photography, but is it great for your health? Again, in the long run, I'm not sure. My previous studio, I seem to be talking about my previous studio a lot because there was a lot of problems with it. So my previous studio was basically a long room, a long rectangle that was split in two by my office right in the middle. And it was mostly dark all day. We shut the blinds. My office had no windows. So I can tell you, it became depressing. Having a studio that you can actually control the amount of daylight, it's really gonna help morale. At least in my case, I don't know about yours. Here in Canada, winters can be, really long, and you can wake up in the dark, you work in the dark, and then you leave in the dark. It's not an awesome feeling. So now, regarding floors, normally you'll have wood floors or concrete floors. Those are the general options, especially around here that we have. If you're gonna get wood floors, they're obviously very attractive, but realize they can be a little bit wobbly if you're doing macro work or especially video work, as in my case. My current studio actually has wooden floors, and unfortunately, because the building is as old as it is, when people walk, you can actually see stuff shake a little. So that's especially annoying and problematic when I do videos. Concrete floors, on the other hand, are solid. They'll be spill resistant, especially, if stuff falls on it, just be aware that, for example, you knock one of your lights or your camera, concrete is a heck of a lot denser than wood. So expect your stuff to probably break. The last thing I think to consider for your studio is its location and the security of the premises. Is the location easy to get to? Is there client parking, or do you have to pay? Are you going to even have parking? And if you're going to have employees that want to take public transport, is it close to a subway or a bus line? And now regarding security, is there surveillance? Who are your neighbors? All this is important, believe it or not. So just be aware of all these little things when you're inspecting a future location for your business.